Hello. Welcome to the Linsider. This will be, I believe, episode 10. I have Thuc with me today. Thuc, welcome to the Linsider. Thank you for spending time with me on your Friday afternoon before the weekend.
Well, thank you for having me hang out with you. It's a privilege.
Laundry, back door.
Jason.
We'll edit that out. No worries.
Jason, yes, Jason, it's a privilege for you to have me hang out with you on a Friday.
It is a privilege for me. Yeah, thank you so much. How did we connect? I think I connected with you you're like a Twitter friend that I made during the quarantine. Like, I was like, who's this amazing writer and advocate for the Asian diaspora? And I think I DM'd you and we just connected and we got on a Zoom and I was like, Thuc is awesome. And we need 1,000 more people like you.
Are you sure? No,
Yeah.
I thought you just thought I was a wolf who tweeted unpopular opinions, but here we are because
here we
get
are.
along.
Yeah. So tell us about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Great, thank you. And I was born in Vietnam, and I am currently in Los Angeles, even though mentally I'm usually elsewhere, like in New Orleans or back in New York or in London. But I'm bodily in Los Angeles and at my computer. And my bread and butter is magazine writing. So I'm an essayist for various places: the Daily Beast, the Los Angeles Times, a few pieces for PBS for the rollout of the documentary Asian Americans, and whoever will have me.
That's great. And so you mentioned you're from Vietnam, but one thing that I really appreciated from your bio is you spent time in Vietnam and also you spent time living in Europe.
I did. I started with being born in Gan Ta, Vietnam, and then I actually escaped with my parents and my uncle on a tiny boat, some of their friends, and we were in refugee camps in Malaysia and Indonesia, and then we were sponsored to the U.S. So my early childhood was in North Carolina, and then we moved to Southern Maryland. I went back to school out of state, undergrad in North Carolina, and after that I moved to London, England, did some work, and then came back stateside to New York City to continue working.
And can you share a little bit about that? And what I think is interesting to share and to hear about your experience is that having that global experience, being born in Asia, it sounds like you had some, even though you were super young, it was harsh and maybe difficult, but also it sounds like you were old enough where it had left some impression on you. And then you also spent time in Europe. Can you just talk about what it means to you to have that sort of international experience? How do you feel that that's shaped you, who you are today?
Yeah, I wish I could remember Vietnam, but I wasn't even born in a hospital, so I'm not even sure that there is a record of me. And my parents, had to sell everything they owned, so it was very, very difficult times. They were both school teachers before, and then they came to the U.S. and had to change their careers. But for me, being able to live in Europe and look back at America, you see more clearly how the rest of the world might view the U.S. because news doesn't even travel, even in this day and age, as much as we think across boundaries. Like, we rarely know what's going on in Europe. Like, I have to be informed. It doesn't automatically, get presented to us, and vice versa too. There are huge headlines that might cross the seas, but I see more and more media trying to bridge those gaps. So it's interesting over the span of time, like how we receive information and how we view it, depending on where our feet are at the moment.
During these last few months with COVID and everyone being stuck home, did you happen to come across Nigel Ng and what he did with Uncle Roger?
Oh, the rice.
Yes.
What was he doing with the rice?
Yes, the skits. Like, did you see any of that?
I did. I recall now, one of my dogs is named Roger. So I was like, Uncle Roger, that's actually my dog's nickname, Uncle Roger. So when that stuck in my memory. Was he making fun of people cooking rice. Is that right?
Yeah, all the famous chefs like Jamie Oliver, and there's a number of other
Oh,
that
yeah.
how they cook rice, and just
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to cook Asian rice.
Yes. I see that in my diaspora, and also someone I know, Jenny Yang, made a show called Bad Appetite, like Bon
Uh-huh.
Appetit, but bad.
Yeah.
So it was like how white people mess up or bastardize Asian food. And you see it every day. They try to call something banh mi salad, and this is from Tina
Oh my
Kwak.
gosh.
But they put in Napa cabbage and miso dressing. I'm like, excuse me. Sure, we love all other Asian food. I do. I'll eat any Asian food. But please don't put miso dressing in my banh mi because that's Japanese. And we're not a monolith, and neither is our food.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. We'll just move right along.
Was this about film? Okay.
Yeah. And thanks for that introduction on your background. When you were growing up, what were some of your childhood favorites in terms of pop culture, music, movies, actors?
I tell you, it was not New Kids on the Block like my neighbors. I didn't fall for that stuff. I never owned a New Kids on the Block pillowcase like they
Good
did.
for you.
Thank you. I enjoyed, E.T. I saw E.T. in the theater as a child, and that was mind-blowing. Because you know how people love to say, Asian diaspora people are aliens, and we're so alienated. So I think that really resonated as a child.
No. Yeah.
Okay, that's another topic.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Care Bears and My Little Pony. Stuff I was given. I had Barbies and G.I. Joe. I'm trying to think like what you and I would have shared.
Well, E.T. I loved. I also loved one of my favorite films growing up was Back to the Future, Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Dead Poet Society.
Yes. I know someone who's in that movie, Gail Hansen, and he's a wonderful man.
Oh,
he's
good.
A true ally, and he was in.
It's always nice to hear that, because usually I don't want to meet people that we look up to, because I've met a bunch of terrible ones.
That's the thing in movies too. That's like a writing thing. It's like the main character, the protagonist, meets their hero and then gets disappointed. That's actually taught in writing class as like a thing that happens.
It's generally true, I would say. It's always a surprise when they're not terrible.
Yeah, or it's like seeing a band live. You're like, you don't sound like the studio version. Give me the studio version.
Who are your favorite bands then? Not New Kids.
Right. I used to work for a couple bands doing internet stuff for them, so I enjoyed some of my clients like Depeche Mode and Garbage. That kind of stuff. I've ridden the elevator with Dave Gahan. My dog has met Shirley Manson's dog. So my dog has met more celebrities than I have. I just stand aside and let her have her time.
When you have a dog, I think the dog is usually the center of attention.
Oh yes, my dog's made out with Ryan Gosling. And I was like, go for it, B. Share some DNA with that man. Go. I'm turning my head the other direction. So, but yes, they had a good time, and so I enjoy, good industrial music, and who else? The Cure. I've seen The Cure a few times. Wow. I made a tiny documentary at a Cure show. I ran from some security guards because I wasn't supposed to have a video camera back then.
Oh, whoa. Where was this?
This was at Jones Beach, New York.
Oh, amazing.
Outside of the city. And,
yeah.
We just talked to fans of The Cure. I had, 3 friends with me, and I had just
you were promoting them basically. Right?
They wish I'd put videos of them out, so it is out now. And no one has come a knocking, but it's a piece of history. It's called Goth Parking Lot, kind of like Heavy Metal Parking Lot, which was a cult classic from 2 guys from Maryland. And I wrote those guys. I said, hey, Krulik and Hain, can I make Goth Parking Lot? Because, I grew up watching Heavy Metal Parking Lot and knowing about your lore. And they said, please do. And their quote was, the Goths are the brethren of the metalheads.
Interesting. Can we find this online, like on YouTube or something?
Yes. You can Google Goth Parking Lot and it will come
up. All right. I'm going to link to it in the show notes.
Yes. There are people of color fans of The Cure who talk.
That's one of the things about music, right? Music really unites everyone. I grew up loving like rock music and hip hop and R&B. And when you go to shows, like you see everyone, right?
Totally. And I loved going to live shows, pre-COVID, of course. And I worked in the hip hop world with my wonderful boss, still my friend Alice Smith. We worked at 75 Arc during the days of Dr. Octagon. And yeah, I've seen some things. I got to ride the elevator with another hip hop figure that I will not mention. Stuff like that.
Cool. And talk a little bit about, so you started your career in advertising, is that correct?
In New York, yeah, one of my first situations out of college was working with a woman named Marjorie Ellis Thompson at Saatchi & Saatchi in London in WC1. And Hamish Pringle was our lead guy at that camp at the time, and they both taught me invaluable things. Hamish Pringle brought me coffee. I was the assistant, and I called him out publicly on it. I said, "Hamish, you brought me coffee. How dare you?" And he's like, "You know what? My boss taught me that. Like, he never made me bring him coffee." So that was an amazing thing. This is.
And who is he? I mean, I don't know who he is, and for listeners who don't know, who is he? Sounds like a legend.
He is. Look him up in advertising. Hamish Pringle, like the potato chips, like Pringles. And he ran Saatchi & Saatchi in the day, and then he's gone on to work, with his own agencies. And Marjorie Thompson, so she was there. She's an American expat from Long Beach, brilliant woman. She started the first cause-related marketing department in the world, housed there. And I came to work for them because I was a public policy major interested in causes. So, we talked to brands and we talked to nonprofits and, tried to pair them together to Robin Hood some money into helping less fortunate people.
That's great. And how did you make your way then from there to being a writer today?
Oh my goodness. And, well, I didn't see it coming and I didn't plan on it. I mean, I always knew I was a writer as a child. Like, I wrote books about fish or small animals in elementary school. So I enjoyed the act of writing, and I took, I read a lot. I read a lot, and I took writing classes in college. One of my teachers told me I sucked, so I didn't care. I kept writing, and she was mean. And then, after Saatchi & Saatchi, I did continue to work in New York City, 42nd Street, like, FCB, Foot Cone and Belting, and other various advertising stints. And it was when 9/11 happened that I said, I will stop being that young person on the track to a corner office, CMO type of situation. I'll be a young person, just go work in a restaurant. I knew someone in Los Angeles who had people out here. So I went. I was like, yeah, this is going to be temporary. I hate LA. But I actually started working at a nightclub. I worked in the Echo on Sunset Boulevard in Echo Park. Yeah. So I was a go-go dancer. And then I met I have evidence. People vouch for me and photographic evidence. Because I worked in clubs in New York City when I wasn't working in advertising. I worked in my second, third jobs in nightclubs outside the office to get by. And so, the Echo is where one of my go-go dancers at the time was dating Dustin Lance Black, who won an Oscar for Milk. Yeah. And so one of their friends was looking for someone sharp to be their assistant on a Jerry Bruckheimer television show.
No way.
I went to be his assistant, and the show got canceled, but we're all still friends. So I assisted Vincent Ngo, who wrote Hancock. Michael Mann, and my other boss is named Evan Charnoff, and I adore them both, and we still keep in touch. So it was my introduction to television writing. I was green. Like, they really took a chance on me. They had to explain things like, what is a honey wagon? I was like, please don't let it be something perverted. So I had to, I learned on the job. I was like, oh, okay, that's where you get the good stuff on a set. Right. So I lived in the office, I lived in my car, and I lived in set, on set. I had a pillow. Because I could barely be home to wash my own laundry. So it was a good trial by fire and kept me busy, ultra distracted. And that was my big introduction to people make a lot of money doing this, don't they?
Some people.
I saw the budgets. Some people, not me, not the assistant.
Some people.
But so then I
get there.
Ready. It's starting. But after that, I, took some of that money and I went to night school at UCLA. And, Yeah, weirdly at the time, I have sustained myself with the most bizarre things. Also at the time, like I got laid off, and then a director named Frederick Bond was looking for an Asian female who could do basketball tricks. They couldn't find one anywhere for some strange reason in the world. So again, I got thrown into this weird situation in Taft-Hartley, again, against my will, because I could play basketball. I mean, I did go to Michael Jordan's school. I went to UNC Chapel Hill. So I went to the MJZ office with my dunks and dribbled behind my back and ran around in my gear. In this
Did you
advertising
play
office.
like growing up, like in high school and everything, or
A little bit in high
fun?
school, but not, I wasn't
Yeah.
that good.
Right, but you knew your
But I
way.
knew what I was doing. Yeah,
Right.
so I knew my way enough to be in this bizarre award-winning commercial for Frederick Bond for a British company called 3Mobile, where I'm a
Okay.
milkmaid with giant hands. And so I, again, just kept getting
You were
weird
doing your
jobs
thing.
that paid my way so I could go to UCLA night school and pay for extension. So I love my teachers there, honestly, and I
Okay.
still keep in touch with them too. Some of us are
Great.
Twitter friends, my old
Yeah.
professors. And then I just, figured I could churn out around 90 pages at a time somehow. I never could do that before, to be honest with you. And I got hooked. I was like, 90 pages, I can do this again. It might be terrible, but I can do it again. And it was self-entertainment because I lived where TV reception did not reach me. So I had to keep myself busy.
But what was it that made you want to go to do the night school? Because I mean, okay, so I love everything that you've said and your whole background. And it was actually really helpful to hear it because I read your bio on your website, and there are things in there that you just said verbally that are so amazing. The little details that are not that are missed a little bit when it's written, right? So I loved having you share that with people. But how did you what was it inside that motivated you to go take those classes? Because a lot, not a lot, but I mean, by the way, you could write that story of you coming to Hollywood into a character for a television series. That would be amazing to see from a Asian American woman's point of view.
Oh gosh, thank you.
But not everyone decides that they're gonna go to school and become a writer. What was it for you that made you do that?
I thought I would do it right. Both of my parents were teachers. I revere school. I thought I would spend the rest of my life in school as academic, then I snapped out of it. But yeah, it was a good experience for me because honestly, I probably needed to get out of the house after, my 15 hours of job hunting on Craigslist or whatever. And I did that to myself in London too. I forced myself to go out of my apartment because I often live by myself because I like it that way, in a studio somewhere. So I was like, I need to go outdoors. I need to drive around the city. Used it from being an assistant. So, and be around human beings and nail down things like structure, not just like whatever I fancy, but I wanted to, besides learning the whole how to collate salmon pages and different things like that, but also know for myself, like, why did the people I work for get paid the big bucks? And that wasn't my motivation, but I wanted to know everything to save everyone more time. Like, how does a professional writer work? Like, how do you know the ins and outs and all the formatting, even just to make life easier for everybody else?
Yeah. And for writers coming up today, do you think that still applies, or do you think things have changed so much with, online courses and social media?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And there's so many supportive writers communities. I see on Twitter, where we met, still, where people help each other and people trade reads and, help each other break things down. And so if you can get a copy of Final Draft or whatever, and then you can make some friends online and form writers groups or have people, kick you in the ass enough to get to your 90 pages, they're out there. So I just made a friend of mine, actually yesterday, Eddie Hamill, join Twitter because he wants, writer friends and a little better push. And I said, people are very welcoming. It's what you make of it. There are a lot of scary people online, obviously. But if you want a supportive community, it's out there. And you don't have to trudge to Westwood. And
Right.
You don't have to be professionally trained because you see now, interestingly, so many people just decide they want to be on TV or something. And then magically they learn how to write. And here they are.
right?
What?
I'm still getting my head around, I think, is it Michaela Cole? Like, did her show start from a Twitter thing?
Oh, she was chewing gum first. There was a different Twitter thing, a movie called Zola, who's just started.
That's the one.
The film started as I think it was like 128 tweets or something.
That's what I was thinking of. Sorry.
And she's told a story, and then A24 picked it up as a film, got a couple writers to make it into a full-fledged script, and then that film, directed by Jessica Bravo, I'm supposed to interview soon, got into Sundance.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Yeah.
And then talk about speaking of writer communities online, talk a little bit about the one that you have. How did it start, and what is the mission, and talk about some of the people that have been involved.
You got it. Wow. Again, it's one of those things I didn't see coming. I tiptoed around the tech world once, and I was in an accelerator in Santa Monica, a pre-accelerator, to learn how to be a startup founder. And there I participated in a program where venture capitalists spoke to women. Each VC firm chose 8 women to talk with, to learn, get to know us. And I thought, it is really that easy just to get to know people as a human being. You don't have to give them money, but you don't have to say yes to anything. But let's be friends, and down the road, you never know. You know, all no's are just no for right now, not no's forever. So it's kind of one of those things, and it humanized women. I know, revolutionary. So I thought, geez, I had a positive experience. Let me apply that to Hollywood, something that totally dehumanizes women of color, and let's help everyone know what it's like to humanize women of color better. So again, it's just like making friends. We have all kinds of mentors, from a VP of a massive studio to so many A-list showrunners to all kinds of producers of films you've heard of that are at the biggest festivals and a huge box office. I mean, it's mind-blowing, honestly, even for me, to know what mentors are so kind enough to take their time. So they each get 8 women of color, and they can dedicate as much time as they want. Sometimes it just opens with a 15-minute phone call, and then some of our mentors actually conduct classes with all 8 of their mentees, or they have sessions every
classes.
Yeah, they have these open doors, and they can check back in. They can get script notes. They can get career advice, or sometimes, honestly, I've heard sometimes they just talk about baseball. I was like, okay. So, these women of color, we love baseball like everybody else. And then I heard, one of my mentors and mentees both bonded over the fact they both got hit by a car recently. So I know. It's so, I mean, I'm lucky too. I have mentors, and now, all the mentors have 8 new friends outside of their social economic situations, strata, or whatever have you.
And how does it work? How do writers, join, and how do you get mentors to do this? It sounds like there's a lot of time involved, potentially.
Oh, so much time. But what you do, good question, is you go to www.startwiththe8, because we're Asian, Hollywood.com.
Okay.
And you can sign up. We have Google Forms. We're a big fan of Google Forms that feed into Airtable. We're very lucky to be sponsored by Airtable, and the wonderful Menanda Reaper and Shelby Covant run the show, and they help everyone get in touch with everybody else. And we're actually getting AI to help match our next round. Again, mind-blowing. We have wonderful gals who have an AI company, women of color in AI, have stepped in, and I would love to tell you their names soon, but I don't have access at this very second. We're stepping in to help Manon and Shelby do what they were doing manually, by matching people by interest, by reading their bios, like really getting to know these people, the mentors and the women of color. Now AI, and they're going to go over after the AI matches too, but again, mind-blowing. Just
to aid and assist, not to replace, right?
Exactly, right. We're still going to have our human components. And again, I don't know, maybe I'm just amicable and special, but, I've just asked people very nicely and with good manners and respect to their boundaries and their time, if they would like to do it. And, I've asked some people and they just said yes. And that's what got the ball rolling with casting
Wow.
Elways, who
Wow.
always has a horse in the race with this
Mhm.
past year
Mhm.
with Andrew Day and the U.S. versus Billie Holiday. So,
Mhm.
he was mentor number one.
Wow.
And since then, we've just gotten so many more people of Cassian's caliber. So we're very lucky that people who believe in real change and that the future is the most marginalized, we need to churn up a bit and just at least get to know each other, because you
Yep.
never know who knows who in this world and who really wants to help. So yeah, I'm just
Mhm.
trying to give access, and the mentees don't have to pay for anything. Like, this has been totally volunteer.
Wow.
I barely have words for how amazing it's been that under a calendar year that we've gotten that many women of color into these digital rooms, or who have gotten read, who've gotten reps, agents, managers. One of the most massive distribution deals through Byron Allen's company.
Oh,
Endless.
wow.
We got a showrunner. One of our
Wow.
mentees got an interview as a showrunner, and now she's going to run a show. So, I
No
feel
way.
bad. Yes, she is.
Yeah.
So I'm pitching a magazine article about it to a massive magazine. I've been taken
Yeah.
under the wing of an editor. So hopefully we can reveal more about her and what she's going to run and what she thinks of all that, and how it stemmed from Start With 8 Hollywood. So I feel bad for people who restrict people from participating in these programs, because, they work.
And how long have you been doing this?
Gosh, it only started like last July or something.
Oh, so like less than a year ago.
Yeah,
Oh, that's when I kind of got to know you.
I know. Pretty
You
crazy,
you
right?
must have been promoting it, and that's how I saw it somewhere. And then I reached out to you. That's wow. Well, good for you. I love that. And I
Good.
hope you make this the huge thing and it goes for, ever.
Well, you know what? It has legs, and the longevity is happening because we partner with the British Film Institute in England, and we have great partners there. So we're going to replicate the program in the UK, and it's already been replicated by the amazing Murray Peters. She's in Canada. So we
Okay.
have a Canadian edition of the exact same Hollywood American edition.
Wow.
And we may get to other territories because we've been talking to people like Australia, mainland
Yeah, I was
Europe.
gonna say I'm gonna have to chat with you, and I would love to bring. I mean, do you have any partners besides? I mean, Australia is in Asia, kind of. Any other partners in Asia, whether it's Japan, Korea, Vietnam, China,
I
Hong Kong,
actually
Taiwan?
talked to two producers from Australia. One of them is from Korea, but
Cool.
we have not gotten, fully in there yet, because we're still
Hmm.
processing UK, America, and Canada at the same
Hmm.
time. All three of those will be running at the same time this summer, and so then we'll take a breather, and then we'll get back to seeing who we can work with, who believes in
Well,
the same things everywhere else.
I mean, good for you. I did not know that initiative was so new. And yeah, as you expand, I can only imagine, yes, you need for it to not only have people to help you, sponsors, you mentioned AI, as you mentioned, but otherwise I can imagine even just finding these partners takes, so much time and
Hmm.
vetting and meetings
Yes,
and conversations.
precisely. We want to make sure we have the right people, and that women of color are always centered and out front.
Wow. Well, good for you. And I believe in karma. And so I believe that's going to be amazing karma for you and for the folks that are involved.
Yes, I mean, so many great things. Like Mananda Reaper has gotten her agent and has gotten a gig from it, and I've gotten a wonderful gig from it. And so, yeah, we're very lucky, but more so, more importantly, our gals have hope, and they're out
Yeah.
there, and we have more plans to be able to reach more people, more newbies to the industry, and just be more welcoming and actually make it a warm place instead of a bizarre, isolating place.
Yeah. I think a little bit at a time. We can't change things overnight, but 1% change adds up over, the days, years, and, et cetera. Um, and so that's just something you do, you know, as a part of everything else that you do. But the main thing is you are a writer. And do you focus on either features or television? or do
I
you want to do a
focus
little bit of both?
to
Because
be
you also do
perfect.
your magazine writing, so you do a lot of writing.
A lot, yes. I'm racking up the thousands and thousands of words. That's okay. I get a really good per word rate now, so
Good
it's
for you.
okay.
Yeah.
It's good because it all lends to each other, honestly.
Yes.
You know, a lot of my magazine writing, the topics have to do with my features, and it's all interwoven subject-wise, or my personal through line. So I focus on features. I enjoy that the most. Having been a television assistant, but mostly because I'm an introvert, it's very difficult for me to always be around a dozen people for very long amounts of time. So features is more my thing because I can control my pace better. But I'm not opposed to television if it's the right situation. I've been sent out for a couple television things, or I did a television style roundtable recently, and it was an amazing experience. So just to hear different people's viewpoints, because when you're real time, you get to build off of each other. Oh, and off of what so and so said, I have this idea. So that was really enjoyable. Writing in a vacuum is its own joy. But yeah, so again, being around human beings once in a while. Magazine writing, it's a juggle because for a lot of articles, I might talk to a dozen sources and I have to keep them all straight. And sometimes even help, get images for the story for our artist, at the various publications. And yeah, it's a lot. So even though I'm just sitting at my desk with a couple of dogs often, I'm fielding 12 emails per article, 3 editors per article, up to that many.
Wow.
Yeah, it's real work.
And what's the main publication you write for right now?
The Daily Beast.
Okay.
Feels like home. So
that's good.
Yeah, I value that.
And I think one of the things that I think is so important is that interdisciplinary perspective that you talk about, how you say that the magazine writing and what you're doing in features, it all connects, and even the lessons that you learned from that tech incubator or that tech meeting that you went to, you applied that thinking and mindset into Hollywood and screenwriting. I think that's so important because there are great ideas and best practices everywhere, and they are related, right? They are, even though people think that they're totally separate, if someone like you draws the dotted lines between two things that seemingly don't connect, like that's something new and innovative.
Yes, it's an interesting marriage, to be honest, between Hollywood and tech. There's so much crossover now because tech companies fund film companies, tech people fund creators. There's just a blur, and the same discrimination problems or the same gender issue problems affect both fields. So there's that. And then, you got to watch out for these writers because, like, for me, whatever made me feel funny, I put into a screenplay called Millie Wu Tran versus Silicon Beach. So about being a woman of color founder, I wrote a satire about the whole situation and being a woman of color in what Emily Chang calls brotopia. So, white boy founders have a different reality than someone like me who on a daily basis gets the microaggressions. So not just the sexism, but the racism, but add to that the white feminism, add to that the inter-Asian weirdness. And because people have no idea what women of color go through. And so I want to bring that to light and change it through Start With It Hollywood, but also through my screenplay about a woman of color struggles in that industry.
Yeah. So tell me of the screenplays that you've written, because you've written many, where do you, and you're writing more and you're getting them produced, but where do the ideas come from? And what are the type of characters and stories that you gravitate towards?
I tell people that when I was younger and had less life experience, I like to write really cutesy rom-coms that were just quote unquote that dreaded word quirky. But then as I lived more and more in the world, I started to write more horror because people horrified me. So my mom was like, "Oh, do you hate someone? Just kill them in a script." So I started writing horror too.
What, your mom? That was from your mom.
Yeah, she's got so many gems.
I was gonna say your mom is cool.
Oh, I'm sending you to my mom because she has ideas and she knows things. But that's another subject. She is the coolest, most aware Vietnamese woman I have ever
amazing.
met. Keeps
Yeah,
me
she deserves to be a hero in a movie.
Oh, hell yeah, she does. And she's remarkable. I'm extremely watered down version of my parents, but not just as an Asian, but for me, like I'm fully aware I represent myself and my name, but also my parents. So if someone misbehaves or is rude, I'm like, who are your parents? Because my mom would be having none of that. Or my dad, or my dogs. But yeah, so a lot of my ideas come from how would I have liked to see it in real life, how I would have changed it, wish fulfillment, exposure to bad people, and, you know, how you can be the hero of your own story. Not always me, literally, but someone like me. And I give full credit, honestly, to a director named Lexi Alexander, who's Palestinian German. We have known each other for a while, and she has directed some good ass-kicking movies and shows. And she said to me one day, "Hey, I challenge you to actually write a Vietnamese American woman lead instead of this open ethnicity crap." I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I just didn't stop doing it. So now I have a good little stack of screenplays that are specifically Vietnamese American women leads, not just Asian American. Because that's the perspective, again, I hate to be cheesy, but write what you know. I know how people treat me. So I can speak to that because it's my lived experience. Because so many people have tried to cut down my lived experience and tell me things didn't happen that way to me. Racism doesn't exist. Microaggressions don't exist. You know, Asian bullying doesn't exist. I'm like, I got receipts and it does exist. And it also exists in the screenplay now because my mama said, you're going to get it on paper. So that's a lot of, it used to be when I was upset, it was very easy for me to write. And I used to think, gosh, I need to write when I'm happy too. You know, I need to find other feels that drive me or how to process my life like many other writers, you know, how to process things that happen to you. You put it on the page.
For sure. There's a cathartic process.
That's what.
And then because your writing is specific and you're writing from what you know and that Vietnamese American women experience, what do you find yourself having to do anything to make sure that the characters, the stories, they are relatable, or is that something you care about? Or how do you, because you know you hear about that, like I'm sure if you've gotten people to read them, whether they're screenwriting competitions or studio execs, they'll give you some version of this comment, right? Especially because you're writing from a woman of color's perspective. How do you respond to that? And then also, how do you, write this character and the stories? How do you make sure, or how do you think about that to make sure that, people, doesn't matter, like in Africa or in China or in Japan, like they totally get what you're trying to say?
Excellent question. And here's your answer. And I'm glad you brought up that last part too, because I do watch movies from Japan or Africa. And what I can imbue is that, like many people have probably already said too, my central characters, they've been downtrodden. They've had their hearts broken. They've been trampled. They've been backstabbed by their own kind. They understand what my skin folk aren't my kinfolk means. You know what I mean? So there's so many of us out there who have these experiences, but we're afraid to talk about it because people try to tamp it down. You know, if you're the nail that sticks up, they'll try to hammer you down, especially if you're a woman of color who speaks up about all kinds of things. So that is what I tell people. Look, if I can watch movies about white people who get shit on, I can write and relate to it. I can write about a Vietnamese American woman who gets constantly shit on, and people will be able to relate to that because I can relate to all kinds of things that I watch. I can find things that, yes, this is a commonality. This has happened to me. But to be honest, I watch movies about people of color, and of course, I can relate more to different kinds of people of color and women of color in films than I can white protagonists of all kinds.
It's a very interesting thing. I feel I hear what you're saying, but what I mean, what I find interesting is that growing up, that's basically what Hollywood has fed you, just a certain type of protagonist, and we all feel that they're so relatable, right? But then now, when you're kind of, that's the message that you're given. But now that when you try to put something different, they're like, oh, it's not relatable. And you're like, how does that work?
Yeah, the one movie I've seen over and over again, because that big joke is that there are only 13 movies in Hollywood, and we only see variations of those in different settings. No, the white boy's from Kansas, but no, this time he's from New York City, but it's the same story. The one story I can't relate to is, hi, I'm a 35-year-old white man who doesn't like my age, and I feel the need to sleep with a 21-year-old co-ed from college. I have seen that movie with different titles, and that is the kind of stuff I can't relate to anymore.
There are a lot of those, yeah.
Or I only hang out with people who look like me in a big city. It's like when you see those movies, it's just like the entire cast is only white people who speak in the movie, and all the people of color are subservient. They're maid, right. They're a nail technician. Again, I will draw the same criticism from Asian people who live in big cities and also have no Black friends, for instance. That's a point that, is pretty clear to me recently. So if we're going to examine white people who have no Black friends, let's look at ourselves and see, how we can be more inclusive and acknowledge that more kinds of people also live in big cities or smaller towns that aren't just Asian as well. So I integrate this idea that is in real life a thing, that yes, Black people and Asian people are actually friends from my real lived experience.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely. And like, there's a lot of historical examples.
Oh, yes,
of that
definitely.
As well, right?
Right. People have no idea.
No, because we don't show them, and we don't talk about them, and we don't celebrate them. And we need to figure out how to make that happen. And one question I did have for you, because as I was preparing for our time together, I did look at your Twitter feed. And can you just talk about, because today today is the anniversary of the fall of Saigon. Is that correct?
That's right.
And tomorrow is May Day. Yeah?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that, because I don't feel that I really understand the significance or the importance of that. And so I would just like to have you kind of share that, so I understand that, and people that listen to this can have some context and learn about that.
Definitely, yes. And they both happened, of course, across the world from each other. Both events have severely impacted my life personally, and I think many people as well. And, as you stated, I think that many Americans of all kinds of generations might not be completely aware of what they mean. And for me, the fall of Saigon historically is when the North Vietnamese communists took over and the South Vietnamese fled in all kinds of ways. That was 1975, April 30th. So we do honor that. There are a lot of thought pieces, and it's going to be the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon in 2025. So get your Vietnamese American woman movies in production now for this 50th anniversary that will be all over the press. And
That's right.
If not for the war, I wouldn't be here. Again, my parents remind me, if there was no American war in Vietnam, I might be working in a rice paddy or be a school teacher and not here hanging out with Mr. Jason Nguyen.
Or you might be a billionaire and just rocking it in Vietnam and having your own little empire. There could be a lot of different versions of that story.
I would be a billionaire. They're evil. But if I had to, I'd give away most of my wealth. And if I ever had,
you'd be one of the good. You'd be one of the good ones.
And make them work. Yes, which lends into May Day, because I participated in May Day marches. Again, this is based around the origin story of May Day. I wrote a screenplay about it. It happened in Chicago in 1886 the world celebrates May Day on May 1st, but the actual event that brought on the concept of May Day, which is about advocating for workers' rights, happened on May 4th, 1886. And it's called the Haymarket Affair, and it involves an American couple who are interracial. The woman is said to be Native American, Black, and Latinx, and the man is a white guy. And then German immigrants, labor activists, they bonded, and then they led marches against oppression, against people working 16 hours in factories, child labor, all kinds of abuses. So the 8-hour workday was their cause. And yes, why we have labor laws, because people fought, people were vilified, people were thrown in jail. The people were Lucy Parsons, that woman of color, and her husband and some men, spoiler alert, they were hung for their beliefs. So if you ever feel bad about standing up for your beliefs with conviction, the Haymarket Affair will show you that it was worth it. That's why people like us are not working in factories for 2 cents, 16 hours a day right now. It's like, it takes people like that. They really don't make them like that anymore, kind of. But for the ones who do exist like that, who I think embody the spirit of Lucy Parsons, I use the hashtag Lucy Lives. She lives through today's activists, all the young people who aren't afraid to speak up about, any small injustices, like mistreating an Asian elder. Like, if you're going to be mean to a 70-year-old Asian woman, I'm going to tell you to cut it the fuck out. And I will call you out on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have severe problems, especially if you tout yourself, as whatever, Asian pride. And so, May Day is very important to me. I've been in marches downtown and participated in using your voice and using your body on the street in protest. I've been in protest. I mean, I grew up outside of DC, so protesting is natural to me. Participated in civic things, or even as simple as let's get more bike lanes, or let's help people in a hospice, to going to North Dakota for the no dappled pipeline, mini Waconee situation out there in Standing Rock. So I'm happy that I was there at certain points in history, or Occupy St. Paul's for the Occupy movement when I was in London. And I've gotten pictures and done some documentary work on these situations. So May Day is hugely important to me. And of course, the fall of Saigon, because people don't look enough to this interconnectedness. Our countries of America and Vietnam would never not be connected. Again, people like Ocean Vuong exist because there were Americans in Vietnam. The reason I'm an American is because of that war. I didn't grow up, like my family wasn't aiming to be an American, but here we are. And here I am speaking English. Like, that was not my first language, but I'll kick anybody's butt in, a test of standard written English test. Grammar, I'll get you. And so both of these things have hugely shaped me, and they happen to be right next to each other. So I think that's interesting. And I wanted to just draw attention to the plights of the marginalized Vietnamese American women, Southeast Asian American women who get paid less than other Asian counterparts. And again, like, I love that we're getting Vietnamese American stories. I mean, go Viet Thanh Nguyen and Ocean Vuong. They've both been kind to me. I'd like to see some women in the mix too. Our men of color are great all over the BIPOC sphere when they're allies. But women are often neglected. So we've only gotten Layli Hayslip's story that Oliver Stone directed.
I think it's also about the right story, right?
Yeah.
You want the right story out there. I think it's great that you are talking about these events, the Fall of Saigon, May Day, because I don't think we hear about them. And one thing is that in history is important. And if we don't keep on sharing those events, they get forgotten, right? And we lose the perspective. It's interesting because I actually didn't hear about May Day until I started living in China. So when I moved to China, that's the only reason why I heard about May Day, because I think you said that even that Haymarket Affair event that happened in the US, I feel like the US doesn't really celebrate May Day at all. right?
We do. There are marches in various cities. I
But it's
get
not
people sending
covered, I
me this
don't
information.
feel.
That is the thing, exactly. And I try to
Yeah.
cover as a magazine writer, journalist, and as a screenwriter, things that people don't pay attention to that are so significant in our world.
Mm-hmm.
That we're led by women of color that people just ignore or don't give credit to. Again, we have certain women to thank for literally our lives and the quality of our lives that people don't know. And honestly, South America understands May Day better than North America.
Sure.
It's more widely celebrated on so many other continents, like you said. And that's that situation where you're global, but America just doesn't even acknowledge or look around. We deny our history.
Well,
So,
China actually has like a 5-day holiday for May 1st. It is it's known as the Labor holiday.
Yes, we have to honor labor.
Like Labor Day, but our Labor Day is in September, and it's not. I don't even know what it really means.
Exactly.
But,
what people go to the beach? That's not what it's about. Let me tell you what it's about. Yes, it's about honoring people who literally broke their backs and literally bent over backwards to, put themselves in danger, to say, you can't do that to us. You cannot make us work to earn you money and give us no rights and not care about our health care, etc. Like I was lucky enough, again, one of my bosses I'm still friends with, Kevin McLeod in New York City, we worked for the SEIU through his mother. We helped build out a website to have union members have ways to track things and, think about putting their kids through college and just to elevate the quality of life for everyone. So I'm really fucking pissed off at people like J.D. Vance who call it a class war to take care of the poorest in society. Children, poor children, what are you supposed to do? It's horrendous to me, and as you can tell in my voice, like I'm very adamant about this change just to help our most vulnerable, whether it be, children who need food and daycare because your parents already have to work. My parents worked, I spent a lot of time alone as a child or because of charity.
Yeah, I was basically home alone, latchkey kid. Like that's
same.
why, for like watching a lot of television or something like that. That's how I learned about America and US culture and all that kind of stuff, right?
Parallel lives, exactly. And so, two of my staunch causes stem from May Day. And of course, we need to listen to more women of color and we need to listen to the most marginalized segments of society and listen to the most marginalized women of color and make things about diversity, inclusion, and accessibility.
Yeah. And have you read anything lately or seen any television shows or films that give you more hope and inspiration that you're seeing these type of stories come to life more often on screen?
That is tricky. A few here and there, and I know we have representation, but I will say, again, I do pay attention to who is behind the camera. So if white people are putting words in Asian people's mouths, I will still have an issue with that because it doesn't really lend to authenticity. So, if I were to do a project, I would pay more attention to certain things. Again, it's not my say, but I'm glad certain things exist. And, I can relate to all kinds of things. I know that there have been big Asian pushes to view shows, reality shows about that have stemmed from Crazy Rich Asians. And again, yes, whatever humanity is in part of people, I can relate to that. But I personally would want things even more relatable to a larger base of humanity so that people feel less alone than still us and them sometimes. And there's still this divisiveness in our media and lack of authenticity, or we can change it up a little bit, let's say.
Well, you make a great point that it's not just about the people that you see on screen, right? And I would go even further that it's not just about the writers. I think it's about also the directors, also the producers, also the executives, also the department heads, basically people who have authority and decision making across the entire project, right? Because films take a village basically to get done. So every key department, you need to have it's the representation, right? Whether
Right.
it's gender or racial or country, depending on your project, right? Like you need to have that kind of authenticity, as you mentioned,
And that's
really
why,
represented.
exactly, you and I are friends because we believe in that, and we believe in being, Asian Americans who pay attention to these things. Like, again, even with Start With 8 Hollywood, Start With 8, or my personal screenplays, it's that whole excuse of we can't find X, not just because you can't find them on Google, but like for me, I wrote a feature screenplay about generations of Vietnamese American women. And through just having an Instagram account or talking with people, I could find specifically Vietnamese American directors, DPs, not just, hair and makeup, costumers, musicians. I know 2 Vietnamese American post-production specialists now through an introduction. It's like I can basically populate the entire cast and crew with Vietnamese American women. So if I can do that, if I have enough contacts to have it be a majority of people who are like the main characters, then it's doable. Because for me personally, I can tell when a man writes a rom-com because I'm always like, woman would never do that. Or I can tell when someone is putting words in, an Asian woman character's mouth. I'm like, an Asian woman wouldn't do that. So can get nitpicky because I am also a critic. That I can go, aha. And then when I do look in the credits, I'm like, aha, when I'm right. But also, too, I get disappointed when I see Asian Americans who rise and you see that they have a position on a show or something else. And then you actually don't see an Asian American character or something. I'm like, I don't know. I can't say. These are just wishes for me. I know that there are different levels of things and power structures, but I would just love it if people felt more of a freedom to be able to speak up or felt like they had the power to ask for things.
Yeah, and I think it does take time because not all of us are. Not everyone wants to, whatever phrase you want to use to describe it, like rock the boat or to speak up or whatever, And so yes, but I think the more we talk about it, hopefully we give those folks the perspective and understanding that it is important, right?
Absolutely.
One thing I did want to ask you also is, so I am a firm believer in, because you mentioned coming from Vietnam, and this is not necessarily like, it didn't happen accidentally, right? This is something that happened through the arc of history. I am a firm believer in, for example, I'm Chinese. My mom is born in the mainland, and then my dad is from Taiwan. And so I have a firm belief of trying to figure out how I can connect to both mainland China and Taiwan. And I think that there's a lot of potential there, whether you want in storytelling and networking and financing projects. What is your view on that? And have you tried to do any of that with either the Vietnamese diaspora around the world or the Asian diaspora around the world?
Great question. Yeah, I have spoken with, Asian American women, Vietnamese American women, and the treatment is very different across the board. Some are extra welcoming, and I think it's amazing to have these new friends so we can commiserate and plot because we want the same things. And some still live by principles of scarcity, or there can only be one, and just aren't receptive to all rising at the same time because they have fears about people stealing their thunder, or I don't know. But it's just terrible because when you treat another human being poorly, you close that door on a whole universe that they could have shared with you. You know what I mean? So again, people need to be able to look in a mirror, all kinds of diasporas. And I've spoken with this about this and seen threads on it in other quote unquote minority groups too. We have to admit when there are fractures. We have to admit that we are not perfect. We have to admit where we falter and maybe don't support each other enough, because there sure are enough people who come to me with enough examples where they feel there has been wrongdoing. And so, yeah, there are two sides to that coin. Like, I'm so lucky I'm surrounded by awesome Vietnamese American women even, and more come out of the woodwork and have stories for me. So you just never know where those stories will go. You got to watch out for those writers.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of great talent. That's the thing. And it's up to us all to find the talent and work with them and to help each other.
Yeah, I sure try to. And definitely, just having the access. But some people feel like it's very proprietary, like this is their community and how dare you help them. Like, I'm writing an article exposing good stuff. Like, yes,
I was
like,
like,
I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
But,
you have to expose. Yeah, I was going to say, like, there are people doing good things. So yeah, I'm glad. Okay, cool.
I'm featuring like 8 Southeast Asian American writers, screenwriters.
Great.
So I'm ready to share the wealth, and I want attention on all kinds of stories, like not just mine. I'm not the Vietnamese American woman, anything. I'm in a wonderful, buoyant sea of other Vietnamese American women. And I'm writing another article that features another handful of Asian American women for another magazine. So yeah, I'm ready to share other people's stories as well within my power or any small privilege I have because of my connections as well. And I would like to see more of that. And I think there's a huge lack of that because people are like, won't look in that mirror, think everything is proprietary or scarce.
I mean, I love that you're doing that. And I think it's so important because that's, when you see all these other lists out there, that's important because people pay attention to that type of media. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, is because there are folks that I've gotten to know that are like, we need to hear these perspectives. And we also need to talk a little bit more amongst all of us in the entertainment industry and raise the issues because not everyone understands all these issues, right? And so it's okay because everyone takes their time, everyone's busy. Not everyone can be superhuman like you.
I have clones.
Yeah, but on that, I do want to ask you, you do all these things. You are so busy. What are some things that you do for self-care?
I lay down and watch home renovation shows and ghost hunting shows.
Ghost? Oh, so give us some recommendations. What are your favorites?
You're going to laugh. Shout out to my ghost bros and ghost broettes. I actually have a group of Twitter friends who are all screenwriters of different races and genders, and we watch episodes of Ghost Adventures.
I love
and
that.
we have a good laugh. And
Yes.
We quote unquote live tweet it. I know it's so dorky, but because we get such a kick out of the ghost hunters on that show, and that is it's stress relief to go. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of us in that group are horror writers, so we like to watch spooky stuff, and that was a thing that we did during the pandemic. And
I love it.
we all live in different cities anyway, so if anyone wants to get our Ghost Adventures watching group together in person, we're very open to any sponsors helping us get to a haunted house together after the pandemic, because we're all just screenwriters with good aims who support each other, and this is what we do to have a good giggle.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. Okay, cool. And then you also have your dogs. One or more?
Two.
And how old are they?
Oh, goodness gracious. Like, we're all senior citizens here, okay? One is 14, and one is, I think, nearly 10, and I'm a dinosaur, so we all get along, is that we crawl around together and we look for treats.
What are their names?
Right now we have a Bee, she's a Beagle Chihuahua.
Okay.
And we have a Jasper, who's a reverse vampire Chihuahua, because he's got 2 bottom teeth in her fangs, because he had to have his top 2 pulled out.
Looks very cute, though.
Very cute.
That's one thing I started doing recently. I started volunteering at a dog rescue.
What?
Right near
Jason.
me.
That's awesome.
Also, like, I mean, I don't think I call it self-care, but I was like, I just wanted to, be around. I love dogs, and so I was like, I don't think I'm ready to own one, but I was like, it's a cool way for me to interact with them.
That's another reason we really get along. No, exactly. Dogs are good people. I mean, dogs are better people than some human people. So there you go.
Yep. There's an element of truth there.
Dog people know.
Yeah. And I guess last question for you is, what is advice that you would give your, post-college self, like your 20-year-old self? What would
Yeah.
you say
It's-
back to your young
It's,
self?
it's weird. I know that it's a question that gets asked here and there, but I recently did think about that. Like, what could I have done differently? Would I have saved myself time? But in retrospect, there's nothing differently that could have been done, because all the experiences do lead you exactly to where you need to be. And I know I'm not just a California hippie. I know the sunshine might have taken over my head when I say these things. But again, it's easy for human beings to dwell on the bad things. But I think it's most important not to lose sleep over dumbasses who are trying to derail you, because they probably don't like themselves. And when you look at their lives, you see why. You have to focus.
That's an important lesson to realize right there.
Absolutely. It's not just a being sensitive thing or whatever. It's just don't waste time on the wrong people. Some people are just out there trying to provoke people who are flying monkeys because they, A, have nothing better to do, B, don't like themselves. So those are two things I would tell a younger person frustrated by the world to keep in mind. I mean, I have been frustrated and have had my moments of grace. And as the years go by, I luckily don't lose sleep over certain things and laugh at them. And I was speaking to the wonderful Kate Park today, the real Kate Park of Los Angeles. And she gave me the best pep talk about humanity and how people will just, we got to sit back and laugh at some people. So that's one bit of advice I would tell myself. Yes, think it's all funny and then put them in a screenplay, kill them and call it a satire. And that's what I tell myself, to do more of that. And yes, get dogs earlier in life, because I used to look at dog people and go, oh my God, are they crazy? But no,
I was going to say it's a lot of work, right?
Yes, it is. But it's much more well worth it. Or maybe I would have told myself that I didn't need to go out all the time when I was younger. I mean, there were months where I went out every single night.
Sure,
like I couldn't just be in my apartment.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe I could have done better time management. And then of course I could have done better meal management, because I still eat like a 3-year-old. But those are just really just basic, typical, silly things. But yeah, overall, maybe, again, easy thing to say, but maybe having committed to taking screenwriting earlier, or believing in myself enough to know that I had it in myself to tell stories with complete beginning, middles, and ends.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and this is something that you can be doing for, the rest of your life, right?
Who the hell knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
But, I've got other stuff to keep me busy.
It takes you. Yeah, I mean, you're certainly doing enough things. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking your perspective with me and with the listeners. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to link to your socials and to your website on show notes so people can find you, and we can all do I want to do the ghost hunting Twitter thing with you guys.
Come on over. Oh my goodness.
That sounds really cool.
Dogs and online ghost hunting. I mean, there barely needs to be any more to life for me. Food, to be a happy
some good
person.
Food.
Yes. So, I mean, gosh, thank you for hanging out. And I've missed it. And I've so enjoyed this afternoon with you and getting to spend time with you again on these 2 big days,
Yeah.
The between April 30th and May 1st. Big deal. Big energy out there. Yes. So I get that from you, and I'm very fortunate to know you. So this has been another great stint of quality time.
Likewise. Thank you, Taupe. I really appreciate it. I look forward to chatting with you again soon, and hopefully at some point in person.
Oh yeah, and sharing more good news, because we're doing
We
fun
need
stuff.
more good news. And
It's
with
coming,
what's
Jason.
going on. Yeah. All right.
Exactly. All right.
Thanks. Have a good weekend,
Thank
and
you.
I'll see you soon.
Okay. I hope that